It was all duckies and bunnies injury-wise for the Twins, and it seemed like it might get to the end of spring training for that to be the case. But some cold water was splashed on everyone's faces on Monday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some moves, and we'll give you the lay of the land in the rest of the AL Central. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Twins. If you're scoring at home, that is actually 2 episodes recorded in the same day. Don't get too excited because it's a lot of news we have to get to, and not all of it's great. But again, thank you for hanging out with us. I'm your host, Brandon Warner. You can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And back in black, not at the library, is Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown. Dave, what's up?
I have many leather-bound books, but not at the library right now.
I thought I smelled mahogany on you when you came through through that door.
It's rich and something. I forget.
The deep burn. Deep burn. Well, we're happy you're here. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And, of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. Would we also be your first and your second listen every day for today then?
Yeah, as long as it's still Monday and you're not overnighting it, because then it would be Tuesday if it's after midnight. That's
how days work. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Dave, no sooner do we hit, you hit record to start a show. What do you hit to end it? On record? I guess probably not. But Byron Buxton scratched from today's lineup with low back tightness in his right side. Couple things. Not that worried because 1, he hasn't had back issues in the past. 2, he did make a diving attempt in the outfield. And 3, Rocco Baldelli said later in the day that he was taking some pretty healthy cuts down in the cage. So not too worried here a week and a half before opening day, but I can understand some angst from the Twins faithful.
Well, it almost seems like Byron heard everybody talking about. It was funny. I think we made mention of, when we were recording the earlier show, we didn't know yet that he had been scratched, or at least we didn't talk about it as if we'd known.
Yeah.
And I asked kind of a rhetorical question. Do you think everybody's kind of holding their breath? All the vibes have been so good, you said, for Buxton this spring, and it's true. Was everybody worried that, how long is this going to last? And of course, right around the time we asked the question, we got word that he wasn't playing today. But it's okay, I think, because like you said, he was in the cage, so it wasn't like he was completely limited, and I'm not going to worry about it. But there were lots of other bits of news today that were not as encouraging.
He was in the cage. Sounds like he's being punished, or like that meme where it's grandma stays in the cage until Blake Snell signs, which happened today. This is not Locked On.
You want Rocco to put you in the cage? Then you behave.
Rocco to put you in the cage. That's the opposite of my house. Rocco, the dog here, goes in the cage, and I get to stay on the outside. But we are not Locked On Giants. We're not here to break any news, but Blake Snell signs a 2-year deal worth $62 million. Top value, and opt out after 1 year. We're not going to spend too much time on it because
we're not locked on Giants, but we are. We can field complaints about the Twins not signing him or someone like him, especially now with the news of DeSclafani apparently being out for the year with that elbow.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it seems likely he's seeing Dr. Is it Meister?
I assume it's Dr. Keith Meister, the Keith Meister. He's making copies of elbow injuries, getting guys back in the hospital.
Steve Areno. Well, the only really truly great thing Rob Schneider ever did.
DeSclafani. Yeah.
Yeah, not so funny. DeSclafani, yeah, going to see Dr. Meister. May have Tommy John. Not that big of a deal, guys. I meant to and forgot. So awesome job, Brandon. The list of free agent starting pitchers who've signed this offseason for $4 million or less. Pretty sparse list. So the fact that the Twins are in his whatever for $4 million, beholden to him for $4 million. Let's just go with that. Doesn't mean a whole lot. They paid prorated a lot more to Homer Bailey a couple years ago for like one start, and nobody batted an eye. Nobody brought it up because Homer Bailey was almost like you weren't sure he existed because you never saw him. So with that said, yeah, it's not that big a deal. I thought they needed a pitcher before. I still think they need a pitcher now. I still think they should sign Michael Lorenzen. I mentioned that a few days ago. But with that said, I mean, was he really going to outpitch Louis Varland over the course of the season, or Simeon Woods Richardson, based on what we've seen, looking pretty good? Honestly, it would have been pretty hard for him to keep that pitching, that rotation spot for very long with all we know.
I'm not sure. I was more of a believer in the possibilities of DeSclafani than others. Not necessarily because, I should say, strike that from the record, Your Honor. In spite of, I need a style guide on which is correct.
Respite.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
In spite of the injury possibilities, when he's been healthy, I hate to like relitigate this, Your Honor, but when he's been healthy, he's been a 3 or more WAR pitcher. So a healthy DeSclafani was a good guy to roll the dice on, and maybe, but he was only maybe the 3rd or 4th guy in that trade.
Yeah, I'd say 3rd.
So when you look at it, now becomes, well, you know, Paddock better make it. Louis Varland better make this transition, or else then we're getting into. It's not that the Twins don't have talented depth down there in the minor leagues, but it's just a little untested for Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa, and there's more guys. So didn't something happen with Cantorino today too? Did you have him on the list? I saw somebody say that he has an injury as well.
Well, I'll pull up the information because I hadn't seen anything like that, but I did see. So Tony Disco, which means Varland is most likely to make the team. Caleb Thielbar won't be ready, and then Jhoan Duran coming down with an oblique strain, which is certainly not what you want. We'll just say that.
Well, it's not an arm injury, so from that standpoint, shoulder strain for Matt Cantorino, according to CBS Sports.
Oh.
So there's that.
Yeah, Bobby Nightingale has it. Cantorino will begin the season on the injured list. So, okay, good catch there. I had not thought about that.
Well, there's just a lot of guys. It happened. It was like, we're kind of talking about all the good vibes and the good health, and but also knowing that it's going to take a lot to get through a long season. And here we are. We didn't even get to the week, and it's like, we're going to look back and say, yeah, remember that disaster in spring training when the Twins lost 4 pitchers in one day? Yeah. So after it seemed like everything was going well. So, I'm not sure where I was going with the rest of that point, but, Duran. Yeah. It's not an upper body injury, as they say in the NHL. So that's right. Good. The bad thing about obliques, 2 things. One, they take forever to really heal before you know that they're done. And 2, if you try and rush it a little bit, that's when you get into trouble with hurting other body parts or going back on the DL and backslide, IL, I should say, and backsliding and losing time that way. It's the second time I've made that mistake today.
Yeah, I'm not going to ding you for it. I agree. It's a very easy injury to aggravate. That's almost alliterative. And yeah, losing 4 pitchers on the same day, not great. You thought you were derailing your point, but I was going to say, fun fact, when I was 11, I lost 4 teeth in one day, but nobody cares about that. Not even a little bit. Was it pitching? How does it happen?
Just natural. Oh, like the tooth fairy kind of thing.
Like one came out, then another one got loose. One came, and I
thought
don't
you
know.
tripped and fell and had a big face accident.
Not this time, no. But yeah, I could understand the confusion. Let's give some love to PrizePicks. We'll come back. I want to talk about this roster, this 26-man roster that you and I were convinced was ironclad, which now has some leeway, to say the least. But first, a word. PrizePicks is North America's largest DFS platform. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. You're not dealing with algorithms. You're not dealing with someone gaming the system. You're not dealing with someone entering a contest 80 times with 80 different lineups. You don't have to deal with any of that. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. You can do a couple different things here. One of them, though, is a fun feature called Demons and Goblins. Demon picks are red, which means they're scary and accelerate your heartbeat. But you can also win big money, as in like 100 times your money. So bet $10, win 1,000. You really gotta, you really gotta be careful because it's a tough road out there. But if you win, to the victor goes the spoils. But if you're more cautious, a little more conservative, you can always choose a goblin pick, Mark Green, because it's designed to keep you in the green. It's designed to keep you winning consistently. The payouts are a little less than a demon pick, but again, staying in the green is much, much more likely. So if you're into the NBA like me, just watch the Timberwolves wrap up a road win over the Jazz. You can pick more than or less than on everything from 3-pointers made to turnovers committed, and for spring training baseball, you can pick more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, and all that sort of thing. So download the app today and enter the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, all lowercase, and get that first deposit match up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Dave, we were having this internal debate, you and me, between Stalmont and Jorge Alcala, with Jhoan Duran going on the IL for an oblique strain. Kind of feels like both those guys are going to make the team, doesn't it?
Welcome to Kansas City.
Hey!
9 days or whatever it is.
Are you the official ambassador?
Oh, no. But I will welcome everybody with open arms, figuratively, if I see them.
Mm-hmm. Well, the plan is for you to see them. I thought you said you were going to cover those games, which would be kind of cool, but discussion.
Oh, yeah. I meant like about town. And
out in the wild. You know, you're one of those Kansas Cityans that goes to eat at Q39 or Joe's all the time, right?
Oh, I'm more of a Q39 guy than a Joe's guy, but I like Joe's too. It's fun.
Hey, that's a fine choice if you ask me. So yeah, Alcala and Stalmont most likely both making the team. So that to me is kind of the upshot for Duran. Save opportunities. I don't really think I see Rocco going with one guy. I think it'll be matchups based, as most things are with him. But I would say if I were to power rank options for closing, 1A for me would be Griffin Jacks, 1B would be Brock Stewart. And then beyond that, if you got some lefties coming up, I guess you could go to Topa or, or not Topa, sorry, Okert. And I think Topa could be in that mix too. But honestly, I think Jacks is my in-house favorite for most of the closing duties for as long as Duran is sidelined, whatever that means as far as 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that sort of thing.
I think so too. I think Jax last year was maybe almost as good as any Twins relief pitcher, and appears to be on the cusp of establishing himself that way. They still do have a lot of depth. They're going to want Duran for the long haul, but it's not like they don't have. This is another reason why it's a good thing that they have. They signed Jay Jackson. It's a good thing that Stalmont apparently has been, as we said in the previous podcast, gaining some velocity in his appearances and confidence. And is kind of on the way up. And there are still guys. Alcala's had a very strong spring, and they have other guys in the minor leagues who are that they could bring up and fill these spots. But every time we have, it's not, as Falvey, I think it was, said today, it's not a small thing that you don't have Duran on the field. He's one of their better pitchers, and it's scary because then you kind of start to worry about the depth. It's like, well, this is why they have all the depth, but being down a couple guys like this just kind of makes you nervous, and especially now with the starters being frayed a little bit around the edges, with Disco apparently out for a while, it's kind of a scary day. And I can see why you want them to bring in someone like Lorenzen, and I don't know if there's a relief pitcher to bring in. I would say not yet, but we kind of want Brock Stewart to stay healthy now. There's a little more impetus to that. And, that's something that hasn't happened a lot in his career. So hopefully, knock on wood, he'll stay where he is in terms of health.
Hey, Brad Hand is still a free agent. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. He's from Minnesota, technically.
Stop trying to make Brad Hand happen.
No. But I think the interesting thing is that the first men out of the bullpen are Cole Sands, who's, got big league time, but also I wouldn't sleep on Zach Weiss. He's on the 40, had decent enough a look at him last year with Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
And what's that?
That is right.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not used to being right. So, beyond that, though, Matt
he's
Bowman,
just starting to throw, though, isn't he? After he had an injury earlier in camp.
Yeah, I just mean to keep an eye on for the.
Yeah.
But Matt Bowman, NRI, but has big league experience. And then Daniel Duarte, who's been kind of my favorite. Not story. He's not a story. He's not a charity case. But like the pitching, he's pitched well. I could see him being in the mix for that, especially if they're going to have a 60-day spot for Tony Disco where they'll open things up. I do have another theory for that spot, but I don't want to touch on that quite yet. So Caleb Thielbar not ready, which I think we both can agree probably opens the door for Cody Funder down under to be one of the relievers. I'm laughing because Roster Resource does roll CL for closer, SU8, so setup man, SU7, setup man, 7th and 8th man in the bullpen. But next to the middle relievers, it just says mid. So I'm looking at it and it says Steven Okert, mid. Justin Topa, mid. Josh Stalmont, mid. Cody Funderburk, mid.
Somebody made a joke today wanting to start a petition that would change the names of the AL Central and NL Central to the AL Mid and NL Mid, and I laughed on the inside. I didn't burst out laughing, but
I think I used that as a bit last year. But you know what? I put so many different things out there that it's easy to just kind of lose track. Like I'll have a bot of the evening, like one of my tweets from November 2022, and I'll be like, "What was I thinking that day?" And it'll be a joke about some political thing, and I'm not political at all, but it just made me think I was funny in that moment. But that's
bot of the evening. You mean like a lady of the evening, but a bot?
The bots that are overwhelming Twitter right now.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be classy about how
is that their angle? I know it's an AI representation of a beautiful woman, sometimes with impossible dimensions.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
Are they? Is it some kind of? Can I say prostitution? What's going on there?
I don't know, and I don't.
The aim?
I also don't think they have pictures of cats in their bio, so I'm feeling a little misled. Now, with that said, yes, I think Cody Funderburk is got to be the easy favorite for that spot. I don't think it matters so much that he's left-handed and just, he's next man up, either him or Cole Sands. They have Jay Jackson listed as the long guy on Roster Resource, and I don't know if there's anything to that.
Does that mean 4 outs these days?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, honestly, in this day and age, we really have no idea. But if I could see a flip-flop where Jackson's more on the middle relief side and Cole Sands makes the team, Brent Hedrick, those kinds of guys. And
remember, too, Louis Varland is not going to be needed to start the first week. So he's going to be in the bullpen. He's probably the long man, right?
Yeah.
For the first week of the season until his turn comes up.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. But if that's the case, then they'll basically roll, what is that math-wise, 9 men deep in the bullpen. That's a good spot to be in early in the season when you don't want to push your starters as much, but you still don't need that fifth starter, which, it just works out that way with weather days and built-in off days for weather, which we see in a lot of these cold weather climate places. Let's take a quick second. We have a couple of our very great sponsors to thank. And then when we come back, I kind of have a Galaxy Brain idea for opening day that I want to talk to you about and see what you think. Like I said, though, it's pretty Galaxy Brain. Let's come right back with a word for Amazon Fire TV. So Fire TV is your destination for sports, live games. You got highlights, in-depth analysis, you name it, they've got it. They offer amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs. And if you have one of those dumb TVs, you just put a Fire Stick in it and you can turn your TV into a provider that has, or tune it into a provider, not turn it, easy for me to say, into a provider that has access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live television, whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which we are perilously close to, not perilous, I guess. Whether it's that or the college basketball tournament, which is kicking off or tipping off, I guess, as one might say here, very, 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 very shortly. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes us, you, me, and Mr. Dave B are going to be covering the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, whether, like we said, March Madness, NBA, MLB, everything that's wrapping up or ramping up. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and much, much more. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. And from our friends at FanDuel, you can say goodbye to your busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every single game of the tourney, whether you want to pick a 16 over a 1 or an 8 over a 9. It does not make any difference to FanDuel. When it's time to go dancing, you go dancing with America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So you could take the easy road, take a 16 over 1, and that's your first $5 bet. $200 in bonus play, free play, all that good stuff, and you can use it on point spreads, money lines, or who you think's going to win it all. Like I said, I think I'm going with Houston, but your mileage may vary. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I don't think they mean cut down the nets like verbally say mean things about the Brooklyn Nets. Do you?
Well, that's not the NCAA tournament, Brandon. So no, they don't.
Okay.
They don't mean that.
Well, but the Nets are grown men, so I mean, if anybody was going to be cut down, they would probably be able to handle it. I'm just playing.
All I know is DePaul hasn't cut down the Nets in that way since 1945 when they won the NIT. So I guess you could say that getting to the Final Four, they cut down the Nets for that, and that was 1979. So we're talking about ancient history no matter where you look at it. Don't bet on DePaul.
No, I won't bet on or against DePaul because they're not playing right now. But the group chat would make you think that I was alive when DePaul cut down those Nets back in the 40s, but I assure you I was not. My Galaxy Brain theory, and it's not very likely. Do you have any idea what it might be?
I'm very curious. I admit that. I don't have any idea.
Well, so Anthony DeSclafani, Tony Disco.
Tony to you. I mean, maybe you're on a first name basis.
We got a good vibe. He's probably going to end up on the 60-day IL, right?
Yes.
That opens up a roster spot. Now, you could use it for Danny Duarte. You could use it for Matt Bowman. What if you used it for Brooks Lee? And It's crazy, but today they sent out Trevor Larnach. Today they sent out Jose Miranda, and then also Jordan Balazovic, who no longer on the 40. Brooks Lee is still in camp. And I understand that still in camp, you don't cut guys in order, any specific order. And maybe you want him to have a longer big league camp experience. There's probably a multitude of reasons that he's still in camp that I'm not accounting for. But he's still in camp. There's got to be at least a sliver of a chance, right?
Well, I think the reason he's probably still in camp, the number one reason, there's probably more than one reason, but the number one reason is probably, as we kind of have talked about before, if certain bad things happen to good people and they need if there's an injury and he can come up and get playing time, he's a guy they're going to call on pretty quickly to do so. Can I ask you, can I swerve for a second? Is he a better right-handed hitter or a left-handed hitter? Do you know?
My understanding is that he struggled last year from the right side. But I don't think it's considered like something that's going to be, Matt Wallner or Eddie Julian against lefties. Like, I think it was more, Max Kepler had a season, and I fall back on this all the time. And I think it was Cedar Rapids back in like 2012, 2013, where he had like a 1-something OPS against lefties. And he's never been a great lefty hitter. But when he won Double-A Player of the Year a few years later, he had like a 9-something OPS against lefties. So it wasn't a death sentence for him. By the way, you know who he beat out for that MVP award? I'll give you a hint. He was playing for Chattanooga. This guy played for the Biloxi Shuckers and was an infielder.
Is that the Brewers?
Yes, he's no longer a Brewer, though. But he was a great minor league player.
I don't know.
Orlando Arcia.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, obviously a real post-hype sleeper who took some time to become the best version of himself. But he's still kicking around there. And actually, I think we were all surprised he made the Braves over Vaughn Grissom. And now Vaughn Grissom, a year ago, is in the Red Sox. So shows what we know.
Getting back to your point about Lee, if he was a better right-handed hitter, because I look at the Twins roster, and I think they are still a right-handed hitter short. If Miranda were an older player and not really in need of getting lots of playing time, which I think is important coming off his injuries and, trying to get back to that success he had a couple years ago. Right. It's important for him to play every day. But otherwise, the Twins could really use a guy like that on the roster right now, I think, especially look no further than opening day where the candidates for DH right now are Willie and maybe Julian and
Willie and Wonty. Sorry, that is
my cough's coming back. You can't do that.
You're giving me some self-esteem that I have a decent joke every now and then. If I can get the cough to come back, at least.
Look, let's not Willie and Wonty. Let's not go that far with decent, but the kind of thing that can make me laugh. Absolutely. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that reflects well or poorly on you.
Yeah.
But regardless, they could use let's just say an old Jose Miranda, an older guy, a corner infielder, a Scott Leyes, if you will, even someone like him. We've mentioned him before.
JDM would make sense. Like, I know they don't need another DH, but there's right-handed pop still out there.
Like who?
JD Martinez.
Oh, him.
See, that
locks you into all kinds of things you don't like.
I know. I'm aware. But at the same time, like, if he's out there scrounging around for a job, you could do a whole lot worse. You know what I noticed today, too? Brandon Belt's not signed anywhere, and he had a perfectly nice year last year. Left-handed bat, gets on base.
I don't think he's got a big split either. I mean,
no, I don't think so.
If they hadn't, I would, I understand why they signed Carlos Santana, and I think he's the right guy. But yeah. I love Brandon Belt. He's great clubhouse dude, and he's an underrated hitter, and he would fit in well. So, but yeah, I still think they could use some kind of right-handed guy. I don't know if Brooks Lee is the guy. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. But
Brandon Belt comes after Brandon Pants and Brandon Socks. You didn't even crack
You
a
had me at
smile.
will he or won't he? I don't know about this.
You didn't even crack a smile for that one. Garrett Crochet is starting for the White Sox on opening day. Just a couple
Crochet,
little
1, Pearl 2. I can't really do it like a knitting
like
joke.
dance move. And
Jazz hands.
Chario. I don't know what
Garrett Crochet, I mean, it's kind of a nice story. I mean, and the White Sox don't have many of those, but he's a very highly thought of pitcher in college as a starter. The White Sox got him, immediately put him in the bullpen, which seemed like a move that was more for what that team needed than, and sometimes with young pitchers, you put them in the bullpen to begin with. And
did they do the Chris Sale thing with him?
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah. And he was good. And then like people were worried that he was going to get hurt. I think that maybe was one of the reasons why they made him a reliever, because they thought something bad is going to happen. And I'm missing a little part of the story, but that's really the deal with him. But now he's going to be the opening starter, mostly because the White Sox got rid of everyone else. But we'll see how long he can go in a game. I don't know. And whether his stuff plays for, I don't think he'll get 6 innings, but that's the idea. So
something that made me laugh on Twitter just recently was someone said, "What player from White Sox camp has impressed you?" And I'm thinking, wow, are we only expecting one? Another quick news note, Kyle Manzardo sent to minor league camp on the Cleveland side. Not terribly surprising, as he's been battling injuries and some other stuff. So we'll see when he makes his way up. But Cleveland definitely going to be an interesting team early in the season to see how much depth they have.
So I guess wrapping up the Twins, it's a good thing they have the depth, because they're going to need it. And they're using it now.
You look at the rest of the division, and the Twins are still head and shoulders above everyone else with depth. Well, we need to take off. We have gotten too much depth in this one. So thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow night.